Little Isaac sits in back row of second grade classroom. Face buried in forearms, folded like fingers forming a fist across his desk. His 8-year-old mind showing a non-stop marathon of last night's horror film. Declares that he don't want to write a poem. Says poems are pretty, Mr. Lamar. And I stopped believing in pretty when Daddy started slapping it off Mommy. That statement ricocheted off my conscience. Like the drunken rage of a fully grown man bouncing against the righteous jaw of a love-stricken woman, I asked him, how do you know your father hits your mother? He tells me that the commotion keeps him awake most nights, seeping through the sleeping crevices of his fingers, invading ears he tries to hand lock shut, but poems ain't never been used for good in this household. Just for smacking Mommy till she's out cold, Daddy makes an art of this every week. Chisels handprints into the thick of Mommy's cheek, paints Picasso-like bruises across canvas like limbs, makes it so that everyone in his fam is damaged like him. Little Isaac tells me that he never met his grandfather, but that his grandmother cringes at the sound of his name as if the slightest mention of him surrounds her with pain. Domestic violence ain't always incidental. Oftentimes it's hereditary. See, little Isaac never had a scary moment in his life to the sight of his father's fist connecting with his mother's ribs set flames to his retinas, torched them, along with expectations of what TV taught him a family should be like. How can he write a poem when he has to go home and see fights poetry can't beautify? Who am I to expect them to write about his feelings as if poetry will correct them, as if reenacting Daddy's actions through rhymes will make up for the fact that makeup don't have Mommy's pain half the time. Black eyes and busted lips don't reside with blue lines and ink pens, only opens the trap door for more pity to sneak in, says Daddy usually comes home accompanied by the unmistakable scent of cheap liquor and corporate dissatisfaction. That's when it begins. Every blow sends shockwaves through Isaac's reality, rattles it like Mommy's chin. Daddy never even tucks little Isaac in tight enough to be sure that he's asleep when nightmares invade reality. Says the first time Daddy's knuckles connected with Mommy's nose, his heart broke before the nasal septum, that the blood sprinting from her nostrils chased every ounce of innocence away from his childhood. How could he possibly have enough strength in his 8-year-old frame to externalize pain that has already secured permanent residence in a still sponge like mine? How can he find a place to hide tears long enough to force hands to confirm what eyes don't want to believe? This is bigger than poetry. Domestic violence ain't always incidental. Oftentimes it's hereditary. And rhyme schemes and stanzas won't take a stand against what's becoming a family tradition, so I tell him that he doesn't have to write a poem and to speak to his real teacher after class. Little Isaac nods before burying his tear-filled face in forearms folded like fingers forming a fist across his desk. His 8-year-old mind showing a non-stop marathon of last night's horror film. But he no longer has to write the poem we all needed to hear.